Cool. All right. Well, welcome to our Zoom tonight. We're going to be chatting all things crewing and pacing. So definitely open to questions throughout the Zoom meeting. Until that happens, though, just keep yourselves on mute so we don't get any back noise. And yeah, just really excited. We had a lot of great questions come in during the registration process. So me and the Chaos Crewing Gals have that on another screen, and we can work our way through. And then as questions come up throughout the night, just unmute and fire away. So very excited to have Chaos Crewing on the line tonight. We partnered up with them just recently this past year, and they are an awesome badass female-owned small business that is offering crewing, pacing, consulting services. I'm going to let them kind of do the whole rundown, but very excited to be working with them this year. And also, you get a sneak peek. They are going to be coming to the Squatchy Leftovers event in November, which is really exciting. We haven't made that announcement officially, but that has been finalized. So you guys are getting the first look at that. So, Ashley and Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to maybe chat a little bit about who you are and Chaos Crewing, and then we can jump into the questions?
Sure, I'll start. So I'm Ashley Pro Crosby, and I live in Rhode Island, and I co-founded Chaos Crewing. It's a small company. We provide crewing services to athletes, but we primarily operate a network of people who want to help crew, people who are looking for crew and pacers. We're trying to grow that network. It's a free service that we offer. We don't really have any sponsorships for that. We just have a few partnerships where we try to just get people plugged in all across the country to find crew for their events. I sort of got involved with crewing. Well, sort of. I've been crewing for like 13 years for my husband. He is an ultra runner, and he runs up to his longest distance is 346 miles to date. I've also crewed for a cycling event this summer, actually, that went across the entire country. So I can say that I've actually crewed the length of the United States. And I just have crewed with a variety of different athletes and other crew, and I really love it. I find that there are a lot of athletes who want to compete in events like FKTs or events maybe that aren't in their backyard. That don't really have access to crew. So I'm really passionate about trying to help connect people where and when I can. And my partner, one of my business partners is Kelsey. The other one is Brittany, who couldn't make it tonight, but I'll let Kelsey talk a little bit about herself.
Yeah. So I definitely haven't been crewing as long as Ashley, but definitely have been baptized by fire in this regard, though. I started crewing actually also for Ashley's husband, and fell in love with it because I'm not traditional. I'm not a runner, and I'm not, typically someone who I would think would ever be able to have the opportunity to be involved. But that's why I love crewing, is because it kind of expands the sport. I personally believe that crew are a really essential part of ultra running. No disrespect to people who run without crew. I think that that's a whole other beast in and of itself. But I really love the idea of being able to kind of expand the sport in the community and be able to, yeah, have fun and be a part of a sport that, um, you know, you don't normally partake in. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think before we even jump into questions, we always attract a lot of newbies to Sasquatch, and particularly with the Wild Goose Trail Festival that's coming up, and now it's 2.5 weeks. It's coming in really hot. We have a lot of first timers who are either going for their first 10K or their first 100 miler. So I know a bunch of folks on here tonight or who will be listening to the recording this next week are attempting their first 100 or the 36 hour or maybe first ultra. So why don't we just start at ground zero and talk about like what is crewing, what is pacing? Because this recording might be passed on to maybe family members or friends who like you were just tossed baptism by fire, and a little precursor to that might be helpful. So if you ladies want to fill in and just give us the rundown on that.
Sure. Crewing, I feel like crewing is any type of race support. It comes in many shapes and forms. A lot of people, when they think about crewing and race support, they think about like in the moment, what you're doing for the athlete when you're on the course. The athlete typically in ultra marathons will have multiple checkpoints that they go through. And when the crew race support could be provided by the race, a lot of races have aid stations at those checkpoints. We consider those folks crew. And then also athletes might have their own crew, like their family, their friends that come out and provide support for them. That's kind of just specifically for them. But race support also encompasses so many different other things like media that gives visibility to athletes and to local communities, and people who offer their home or a ride from the airport when you fly into another place for an event. So we like to think that crewing can just kind of run the gamut in terms of anything you do that is going to support an athlete to get to that ultimate goal and be able to finish that event. And pacing is a little different. It's basically where you run a leg of the event with the athlete and you try and keep their morality high. You want to keep them going. You want to be there for them to kind of watch and monitor that they're doing okay. A lot of races don't allow muling, so you're not like carrying things for the runner, but you are going to be there to try to like keep them moving and keep them on kind of on pace with what their goals are. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people are like, no, I need a trail nap. Really depends on the distance. So if you're looking at a super long race, a pacer might just be there to make sure that you don't get delirious and go off course. Or that on an overnight section when it's really, really tough and you want to stop running, as a lot of these events really do go straight through, and athletes like to try and push it and just run straight through the night. A pacer will kind of help them, keep them awake and make sure that they don't get lost out there in the wilderness. Usually pacers don't run the entire distance, they just run sections. They might run a section, take some time off, run another section, or just maybe run 10 miles if that's all that they want to or can do. But in any case, they really make a huge difference for an athlete who during their high points and their low points.
Yeah, I always like to say that pacers are pretty much glorified babysitters for toddlers. Because a lot of times in the ultra, especially the long stuff, the runner sometimes turns into a toddler, where a pacer and crew is like you're providing the basic needs, keeping them alive, keeping them safe. It's now snack time. It's now nap time.
Here's your bottle.
Exactly.
And you don't have to be an ultra runner to be a pacer, which is something I really like. People that only run, half marathons, and they will jump in and just do like a section, which is great because it could be like the most important section for that athlete, or it could be a section that has a lot of elevation and is just gonna, without somebody there with you, could just take so much longer to get through. I'm not an ultra runner yet. The farthest distance I've run is a marathon. I ran the New York City Marathon, but I did run, when I was training for the New York City Marathon, I was at an event with my husband, and he was running this 346-mile race, and he came out of the desert and he was going into Las Vegas. And this is someone who I admire beyond belief when it comes to his ability to just crush it and maintain his mental facilities throughout a really, really long race where he ran straight through. And this one ended up taking him about 4 days. It was from LA to Las Vegas, but the final stretch, he just could not, when he got into Vegas, the lights were just blurring and he couldn't see the road. And so I ended up pacing him his last 6 miles. And I was like, yeah, I'm not an ultra runner, but I paced in an ultra marathon. So it could be anybody.
Totally. Yeah. And before we jump into the questions, I do want to say there really is no right or wrong way to crew and pace. However, there are ways to make it much easier and much more enjoyable. So that's why I'm so glad we have these gals here tonight, because they have been, they just have so much experience under their belts. So we're here to provide some guidance. Again, no right or wrong, but certainly a lot of ways to make the whole process enjoyable for you and the runner. So why don't we jump into the questions? I'm no particular order, they're just how they came in on registration. So the first one is a great question. This is from Bonnie Wilt. I know she's on the call tonight. The question is, what is one of the best things a new crew person can assist with?
I think, I mean, I don't think this is a qualifier to be a new crew person, but any crew person, like, is just the basic things. Like, if your runner knows what they need, especially if they're having a new crew member come in, they're probably pretty familiar with what their needs are going to be. Just making sure you know what they expect of you and being able to just provide them with refilled water bottles, right? Their nutrition that they maybe prepared you with ahead of time, and just having things available to hand off to them. They sometimes are, not really focused or not sure what they're wanting, or they're distracted in the moment when they come in and there's a lot going on. So just having everything right in front of them is kind of step one.
Yeah, and if you're new to crewing,
Oh no.
a little bit about the course before you go into it. You don't have to do everything for that person. I think, especially if you're new, you can really find one or two things that the athlete really thinks that they really need to depend on you for versus maybe the aid stations, and focus on doing those things really, really well. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know everything before you go into it, although doing a lot of research does help, especially if you want to just dive in and learn everything about that event, and really kind of be like super manage all of their needs on the course. That's definitely, something you can do. But like, if you're new to crewing, try to maybe join another crew or a team, or even volunteer at a local race, even if it's not an ultra marathon. Just volunteer and see what aid stations are like and what people typically need at those aid stations, so that you can get a feel for like nutrition and hydration. I went so many years crewing where I just had no idea about hydration. Like, I just had no idea why my husband was tanking at certain times, and I had to kind of learn. And there were things that I was able to learn that he incorporated into his race strategy that ended up really being beneficial to him. So I would just say, as a new crew person, you can assist with anything that you want that the athlete needs, but try to choose a few things that you can do really well, or that you can really focus on, and then try to learn, if you're really wanting to dive in, try to learn kind of the background of what those needs are. Like, when it comes to nutrition and hydration, like some baseline levels. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in some of the other questions, but kind of like what to look out for whenever you're watching your runner on the course.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to highlight one of the things you both said is just talking with your athlete. I think it's so valuable to make some time before the race to sit down, whether it's a Zoom or a phone call, whatever, in person, just to talk about, what are you expecting? What can I help you with specifically? So that way, it's less of a guessing game when you're in the moment. And I'll throw this on there. I'm sure you both have experience with this, but one of the best tips I got early on with crewing is to try to ask your athlete yes or no questions rather than like open-ended, because the more miles that pile up, it's a lot more difficult for them to think. And if you're asking them, what do you want to eat right now? And it's mile 92. It's really hard sometimes. They're sleep deprived. Whether you can say, hey, I've got potatoes, or I have Swedish fish, kind of the salty and savory. And then they can just look at you and grab it. So the yes or no thing I found is pretty handy. It's a little tip to throw in there.
Yeah, I love that. And also just thinking about what you just said, you can make a list sort of beforehand, like a little checklist, even if you don't like check it off in the moment. Just go with your athlete and make a checklist of all the things that they kind of want to get done at each aid station, so that when you see them, you can just look at it before they even come in, and you just have everything ready. And you can kind of make a mental note of what you're checking for, and what you need to check on. So some aid stations might, like, early on, you're probably going to have less to do, but later on down the line, speaking to the yes, no questions, there might be questions that you need to ask your runner to make sure that they're staying hydrated. Like, how many times did you go to the bathroom out there? How many times did you go to the bathroom? So those are types of things, like once they start telling you, I haven't gone to the bathroom in like 6 hours, you know that you've got a problem with hydration. I'll talk about this more in a minute, but yeah, just kind of like talking beforehand about sort of like the things that can go wrong and how you might want to address them.
Awesome. That's great. All right, let's keep going. I think probably we could spend the entire night on one question with just how much it expands, but we'll keep going through and let the conversation flow. So here's the next one. What are some tips for a solo racer with a husband as the crew? It's maybe a little marital counseling here as well.
Patience.
I mean, we were actually just talking about this with in a consulting client of ours, but it was with their parents. I think family in general is interesting because you have a different relationship. Like, you're hyper concerned about them, right? You're not, maybe it's harder to give tough love for some people, not for Ashley. And being able to have kind of a calm demeanor when things maybe get rough can be difficult for some people. And so I think having that conversation, like you mentioned, ahead of time, sort of having a list of, you know, what, or asking the runner what are your, you know, if this happens, that's when to be concerned, right? Or, you know, having an understanding of what their threshold is, because just because you're uncomfortable, or you're thinking that they seem uncomfortable or really at risk, like they might not be. Like, it gets ugly and it gets messy and it gets, you know, they get tired, and you may feel more concerned about them than maybe they actually are about themselves, right? So having a really solid understanding of what the boundary is for, and I'm talking about like dropping, right? Of like how, or you know, needing to take a break. Having that solid understanding with family is, I think, probably step one.
And you don't always know ahead of time what can happen. And I mean, a lot of it comes from experience. And if your runner's doing a 200 miler for the first time, or even 100 miles for the first time, and any ultra for the first time, they're going to have different, every race is different and you learn something new every time. But they might not have a full grasp of everything that could possibly happen. But some things that I like to do is, one, I like to coach people to try to be able to recognize the signs of really big problems. And that can include dehydration is like the number one thing that you really want to pay attention to. Stomach issues, to recognize the signs of stomach issues. And then foot care is a big one. So some people will say, and this goes back to like hubby and wife thing, like communications. Some people will say, like, my goal, no matter what, is to just finish, just get me across the finish line. But recently I found out this is like not always true. Because there is a threshold for everything, like Kelsey said. And we even had a moment where, you know, we had told a whole crew, like, hey, whatever it is, we're going to finish Cocodona no matter what. And we're going to get through this race. And it came, when it came down to it, the runner, my husband, pulled a hamstring, and he did not want to chance it because he had another event coming up this year that he didn't want to have to go into recovery before this other event. But we didn't talk about that being the goal. Like, we didn't say, hey, we want to finish as long as there's no injury. So there were people on the crew that were like, we really need to make sure he finishes. He said this was his goal. So my biggest piece of advice is to, as the runner, and it sounds like this question is coming from the runner, to just be very honest with yourself about what your goals are, so that you can kind of portray that and like give a really good kind of A, B, C kind of like tiered response whenever your crew says, what's your ultimate goal here? And that way they're not confused when they're out there on the course. And there's a lot of ways that you can like maneuver through communication skills in that regard, but just be honest with yourself and with your runners about what the true goals are here. If you're not one that's going to just push through an injury, which is I'm not saying I recommend to do that, but if you're not one that wants to do that or make something worse, just be honest with your crew about that.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. I think the central theme is communication. So having that communication ahead of time is always a lot easier than in the moment, because the other thing too is not only is your runner tired and exhausted, you are going to be fatigued and exhausted, brain tired, physically, all the things. So the more you can chat ahead of time, the more you're going to help your future selves, both you and the runner. So this is great. All right, next one. This is so good. This is from Todd. He says, what essential items should be included in a crewing checklist? This is probably the wheelhouse right here for you both.
We
I'll
love a
let
list.
go first. Yeah, we have lists galore.
We love lists. And yeah, so I mean, this could go on again. This could be a whole other conversation of itself. But I want to start by stressing that this list is not only for the runner, it's for you as well. You are also out there. You also need to eat. You also need to take care of yourself. So not only are you thinking about nutrition and hydration for your runner, which they will have the input there, right? They're going to know what they want to eat. They're going to have, or likely they have a strategy, and they've been training with certain foods and certain schedules in there. So that'll be on your list, but also things like your basic first aid kit, things for blisters, sterilized needles, Lugo tape, things to help with muscle fatigue, like BioFreeze, things like that, Tiger Balm, but also making sure that you have all of their, the race information available to you. I think that that's really important for us, is just, you don't always have great service in the area. You want to be able to have all the materials you need, like the map, the aid station information, emergency numbers, things like that, because you don't want to rely on the service out there. You want to be able to have everything ideally printed out as possible, as much as possible.
Yeah, and your list is going to change, like Kelsey said, depending on like where the course is. If you're at an event that you're in the mountains of Washington State, or it's going to look a little bit different than if you're an ultra marathon in New Jersey, right? Because you can kind of more easily get to a store in New Jersey. So just thinking ahead of time of what the course is going to look like, and building your checklist around that. The race will always have kind of like a mandatory checklist for the runner, depending on the terrain. They need to know that, but you need to know that too, because it's essential that you're checking to make sure that your runner has all of the things that they're supposed to have when they leave that aid station. And a lot of people just kind of rely on their runner to get through this, but the runner, like Kim said earlier, isn't like, especially the more you go on, isn't always like with it. And this is one thing that I think is really important, to be with it, because you want to know what that runner left the aid station with in case they don't make it to the next one, especially if they're in the wilderness. If you have to, heaven forbid, contact an emergency professional, or like someone to go locate someone on the course because their tracker isn't working, or they maybe went off course, the first thing they're going to ask you is, what do they have on them? They're going to want to make sure that they know that that person has at least the basic things that they need to kind of survive a night out there, or a few hours if it's going to take them a little bit of time. So crewing checklist for yourself, make sure you have like all the essential things you need to take care of yourself, but also make sure that your runner has all the things that they need whenever they leave that aid station, for the race that they're running.
Yeah, that is so huge. And it comes back to what you both said about how helpful your lists can be, and literally like print it out, have I mean, I'm like crazy neurotic type A planner. So binders, you got it printed, laminated, and don't trust your runner. Just don't trust them when you ask, do you have X, Y, and Z? And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Physically go and check them, especially, you know, what Ashley just said, these events, not necessarily wild goose, but events where you're out in the backcountry and you're not going to see your runner for 6, 8, 10 hours. It's so important that they have everything that they need. So going through that checklist and saying, no, like, let me see that you have, you know, whatever it is, Neosporin or something like that. So the other thing I want to throw in too, and this is just something I've learned from experience, is with the with cutoff times, knowing that information is really important. Again, Wild Goose, we only have 2 cutoffs. One is at mile 92, 93, the other is the final one. But for other events, you don't want to be doing ultra math in the moment of figuring out like, okay, they have until 2 o'clock to get there. What pace do they need to maintain? If all that is printed out ahead of time and you've got that, because again, you're going to be fatigued, and don't trust your runner to know that information because that could get kind of mixed up in their brain as well. So avoid ultramath as much as possible if you can do that ahead of time.
Yeah. And just going back to list really quick, shameless plug, if you want our list, we give that out for free. So get in touch with us and we can send that to you. We have like a free handbook and we want to share that list because we work very hard on it and we add to it all the time. So if you notice something that was useful for you that also wasn't on it, let us know because we will add to it.
Yes, take advantage of that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So this is coming from a lot of experience with these gals that they put this together. So definitely recommend nabbing that. Next one. This is a great one. So can you share some tips on providing emotional and mental support? So we talked a little about the physical. Now the other side, which can sometimes even be a little bit more challenging and a bigger part of the puzzle. So what advice do you ladies have for that?
Ash, all you.
Oh, well, I'll just start by saying, don't take anything personal that your runner says to you on the course. It's a lot easier to be supportive to them when you're not focused on your own feelings in those moments. I know that's hard. That's easier said than done, especially when you get tired. And we've all cried as crew. I mean, if you haven't cried as crew yet, then you're not doing it right now. I'm just kidding. You've got it. You're doing it right. You're doing better than I am. But yeah, I think you have to give everybody some grace that we're all just human. There will be moments where there could be moments where you feel like you made a mistake or you didn't do what they would have expected you to do, or they came in and didn't seem like nothing went right when they came through the aid station, and maybe they're a runner that wants to run really fast and they were trying to they just like kind of flew through and you forgot something. Like, don't panic because it's not the end of the world. But I think just being kind to people and not sitting there hammering them with like, I think you have to read the room. When it comes to like the person that you're dealing with, and one, not reciprocating frustration. Sometimes you just have to step away and give them space. And then sometimes you have to give them tough love and say, okay, well, I know you're not feeling good, but you're going to get out there because nothing that's happening here seems tragic or really scary to me. And I've done a little bit of research. I know what this is supposed to look like. I think this is just a case of you need to get going. And then there's also like this whole like just being kind to them, and emotional and mental support can come in not even saying anything. It can come in like just having their favorite drink or having like the music playing and something like fun that they like to hear. Kelsey's like probably she made me go first, but she's really like our cheerleader at every event. She keeps everyone's spirits like super high. So I like, maybe she has some tips to piggyback on that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because one of the first things I was going to say was your demeanor can make a huge difference. And I think starting out calm, like things will get stressful. Like Ashley said, I think I cry at every race. And so having, sometimes we'll even have a little bit of a, okay, they're coming in soon. Let's make sure that we are all calm. We are cool, collected. You know, they're going to be a little bit chaotic, and that's okay. Let's make sure we keep our cool so that they feel reassured. That goes a long way. Sometimes though, if you kind of know ahead of time, or you know their runner, like, yeah, having music playing, having a party, if it's just their morale, like, that's not probably the best approach if they're actually really need some sleep or are needing something physically, right? If it's just morale, like, then maybe throwing a little party at an aid station is a great approach. But this is also something that I really, really, really recommend asking them ahead of the race, like in that call, in that conversation. You know, it feels like a silly question to ask, like, how can I help you when you're down? Like, runners might not have ever really thought about that too. So like, we've had clients that are kind of like, I don't know the answer to that, and that's okay too. But sometimes you just haven't thought about it, and knowing what kind of person they are, and you might, if they're your close family or friend, but knowing what they prefer in that moment ahead of time could help. You know, do you prefer to be, you know, kind of pushed, or do you want someone that's kind of reminding you of your goals, reminding you of your training? And that's another thing, knowing their goal and just saying, hey, you're not hurt, you're not injured. It's okay if you're not on the time that you wanted. Keep going. Like, you're here for a reason. This is why you're here. This is why you told me you're here. Keep going. And so, yeah, having those conversations ahead of time to know that, and know what they want you to do in those moments is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, so good. And the conversations too, like, be very specific with your runner when you're asking, say, go through all the emotions, the whole wheel. Like, when you're angry, what is going to be most helpful? When you're really sad and you're crying, when you're scared, you know, when you're upset, all the things. And because like Kelsey just said, maybe they haven't even thought about that. So it could be really helpful for all of you to have that conversation. Um, and yeah, just staying calm, I think, is really, really important. And it's hard to do a lot of times if the whole, you know, the dynamic is kind of going nuts, but staying calm. Um, this is going to roll right into the next question, which I think is such a great question and very challenging, I think, to assess and make decisions. So Sky wants to know how to know when to encourage runners to keep going versus when to encourage them to rest. And I'll add on there as well, maybe to drop from the race for DNF. So this is a great $1 million question here.
I think ultimately, listen to your runner. I think there's different approaches there, and I guess everything always comes back to, it depends on the runner, but overall, a lot of times they know what they need in the moment. I think that, especially if you've talked about um, what um, what their actual goals are, and so you guys can be on the same page. Like, if you're saying, hey, there's, you know, you're feeling an old injury flare up. We talked about this. You don't want to injure it more. You know, here are your options. But in general, just listening to their feedback in the moment. If they have physical needs, if they're really, really tired, then they should take a rest, even if they don't want to, even if they're trying to push for time or things like that. If it's nighttime, they're tired, they're just trying to make some, you know, a time goal, but you don't have a pacer or anyone to go out there, or it's a long leg, then the best choice in that scenario is probably to take some rest for their safety, right? But if they're feeling good, you know, and then go out. So I think it's just all about actually listening to what they're telling you about how they're feeling, and mainly for safety, for injury. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that I think you can give yourself some confidence in this by really doing some background work on just knowing the signs of different, like I said before, different problems as they arise, so that when the runner comes in and they're, you know, really fatigued or really tired, one, you have you have your goals. You already talked about those goals ahead of time. Maybe you even talked with their coach, or they shared their, the goals that they spoke with their coach about ahead of time. You kind of know where they are at currently within that like time frame, those goals. I do think that it's good to encourage people to rest when they need to like completely reset. I think when they're like clearly like not able to keep anything down, whenever they are having extreme muscle cramping, sometimes it's good to just take a step back and to maybe take a quick nap, or if take some electrolytes or whatever the issue is that they might be facing that would keep them from going kind of on their own, like just getting out the door on their own. Some people just really like to kind of sit and chat and do get chatty like at aid stations. And sometimes you need to just be like, okay, let's get up, let's go. If it's cold out, getting them warmed up. So one thing that's really hard to do in some ultra races is maybe not in Wild Goose, but like in a race where they're running for multiple days and they might plan some sleep, warming them up and maybe like shaking them out while they're still laying down and trying to get their body like moving. I always like to like a massage on the legs, massaging the arms and hands, and really like just moving my hands and warming them up physically can like just get them kind of ready to get going and get up again. Food always really helps. I think if people feel like they had like something tangible meet their need, that can really get them to want to get going again. But it really depends on kind of what situation you're in and how they're feeling. In a shorter distance race, I think the goal is always to like people make a lot of goals to like set records, their like personal best times on shorter courses. So like that's another way to like help encourage people. Don't ever be like, you're not making your time, or like so-and-so's catching up to you and they're going to pass you, unless you've talked about it beforehand and they like the competition, and then okay, great. But like most people don't want to hear, like even elite athletes don't want to hear like so-and-so's catching on you and you better get going. But I do think that like you nudge someone to say, hey, you've been here a while. Is there anything keeping you from going? Like what's keeping you, like, are you go through those yes, no questions, like Kim said. And then if all of them are no, I'm fine. Then it's like, okay, we don't see a reason. Let's keep going. Let's get up. Let's go. Let's get moving. That was a long answer.
No, it's awesome. I'll throw this in. I know our aid station captain for the Wild Goose, Matt Klein, if he were here, he would say one of his favorite mantras ever is don't choose a permanent solution for a temporary problem. Is a really great mantra to have it doesn't matter, 5K, 200, 300 miles, and probably life as well, to not choose a permanent solution for a temporary problem. So especially in the context of the Wild Goose, we talked about this in the last clinic that we had, but you have so much time to finish. So, and that's why we didn't put gobs of cutoffs in, because we want you to feel comfortable and know that like if something does go off the rails earlier in the race, you have enough time to reset, regroup. Even if it's literally like you need to take a nap, you're just checked out, fried, you need a reset, you can do that. You have the time. You have 36 hours to do the 100 miles, to do the 100K, the 50 mile. You've got 12 hours to do the 50K. So there's a lot of time to not just pull the plug really early on. And even if that's GI issues, you're really not feeling well, you have time to slow down, let your stomach settle, and to then eventually get back out there. So that's for Matt Klein. He would definitely be preaching that for the answer to this question. But this is going to roll right into, I'm going to combine two questions here because they're a little bit similar. The question, I'll ask both of them, but they're together. So how can I get my runner out of her head and keep going when she falls into a deep, dark hole? Kind of touched on this, but we can expand a little bit. And then Sarah just threw this in there. I don't think I asked this during registration, but what are some of your tried and true tips for crew dealing with a super emotional, cranky runner who wants to drop, coming from a formerly notorious cranky runner. So we touched on it a little bit, but maybe some specifics here for in those moments when the runner is really like, I do not want to go anymore. I hate the world is ending. What are some things that crew can do to assist them out of that deep, dark, dank hole?
I mean, I think that's hard to answer because I would have wanted to have that conversation before the race. I can't preach that enough, because I think that I would want to know what those conditions were that we discussed of dropping. Because quite frankly, if someone's telling me I don't want to race, I want to drop, then it's their race. They can drop if they want to. But if we've discussed that, you know, I'm gonna get emotional, or you might not know that, but or like I only want to drop if, you know, I'm really physically um feeling it and can't, my body's not going anymore, or things like that, or if I am feeling injured, or stomach is not resolving after this much time, um then if, you know, if they're complaining, if they're just angry, I would maybe just start going down that list gently, and just being like, okay, well, this is what we talked about. Do you want to address these problems, or do you want to just drop? Do you want to give up? Do you like, you can, but do you want to? Is that actually what you want? Or I can give you other solutions, right? Like maybe that's another thing, giving yes, like giving options of you can drop or we can do this, right? You can drop or we can try to eat something, or you can take a 15-minute nap or something like that, right? And giving those options, then they might prefer the other option to dropping. So, yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully you can try to, you know, foresee some of this before they get into that deep dark hole, or at least like troubleshoot some of these issues before they get there. But there's always like one more leg. Like, can we make it to one more aid station? We have a crew, like our partner Brittany is really good about being like, okay, I know you want to drop, but can we just try one more leg? Things can turn around, even if you have to walk it, like just walk it. And then let's get to the next aid station. If you want to drop then we can talk about it there. And that sounds kind of like patronizing, but it actually really, sometimes you need someone to be the grown up. Like you need a, we had a crew once where we had a teacher on our crew, and she was awesome because she was like, she was very like, not condescending, and she wasn't trying to be patronizing, but she was very like, stop, this is okay, things are fine, things are fine, let's keep going, here's what we're going to do. And sometimes you need to have that. So talk with your runner ahead of time if maybe that's an approach that could be effective with them. Like maybe they just need someone to be the parent or to be the teacher in that moment, and take the reins and say, okay, we're going to go to one more, just one more leg, because one more can just turn out, it could be a big difference. Kim, have you ever been in like a really deep dark hole in some like your longer distance events? Like how did you come out of it?
Oh, I mean, all the time, for sure. Someone's crying. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the conversations that happen ahead of time where the crew and pacers who are with me, we've talked about like, I'm not going to respond well to somebody getting in my face and saying like, let's go, you got to go. And they know that. So, you know, we've had those conversations. For me, definitely what you just said about being in the present moment is really, really important. So again, whether, and I'm serious, it could be a 5K where you have 3 miles and that's really overwhelming to think about, or it could be 100 miles and you're at mile 10, you have 90 to go. I don't think it's helpful for anyone ever in the history of mankind to think about, I have 90 miles to go. That's going to make me feel really good. But to bring it back into the moment and say, okay, we're in this mile and I need to get to the next aid station. That's another mantra, is aid station to aid station. So that's something that's definitely been helpful for me. I mean, honestly, a lot of times it's like if I'm having a meltdown in the middle of the trail, the answer is, well, Kim, you have to get back to the aid station. So you just can't quit here on the rock. You got to get up and keep going. But yeah, I think sometimes I like to call them like Jedi mind tricks a little bit. And it's kind of what Ashley just referred to. And it's not really like manipulation, but it's kind of just presenting the facts, in a specific way. I mean, you can use motivation in terms of like, hey, the next time you come back here, we're gonna have a cheeseburger ready for you, like cheeseburger and French fries. But you got to go and do the 5 miles because that's how long it's gonna take to cook. Or that's probably not true, but you're like bending the truth a little bit. Just being kind of creative with that. Or like, hey, the next time you go out, when you get back, Kelsey's here to pace, and not a guilt trip, but just say like, hey, she traveled out. You asked her to come. She's here. She's ready to pace. She's got her gear on. She's got her snacks.
Guilt works sometimes.
Yeah, it does really. And a lot of times you're just kind of pulling on the heartstrings a little bit, but that kind of brings them back into reality of like, oh, you're right. Like we have been planning this I've been training for this for an entire year, and Kelsey is here. Like I asked her to come, and she's going to do these miles. So,
and if you do have a pacer, something that we, some advice that we got, I think it was from Kevin Goldberg, actually, who
legendary.
We were talking about Cocodona, and he was talking about like just mile by mile when it gets really hard. Obviously, it's better if a pacer is with you to remind you of that. But just mile by mile, you don't have to worry about your pace. If you had a really slow mile, the next mile can be better, and really breaking it down into as small bites as you need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the small bites thing. I'm racking my brain. Someone who maybe was on the last clinic. You can help me remember the acronym. It was some snazzy acronym that Kenton, our scratch rep, shared.
HALT.
What was it?
HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
That's it. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And so that's coming from Dr. Lim, who's the head of Scratch, and he's screwed zillions of events. So that's something that you can, maybe you're not like going down the list with them, but in your mind, you're kind of trying to figure out, okay, XYZ, what really is the problem here? And if you could more specifically address that, it could be really helpful for your runner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're knowing the signs of like real problems versus like things that are, I'm not saying that, how a runner feels is very important. But I think if you can have the confidence to be able to assess a situation for them when maybe they don't have the clarity of mind to fully like see that they are okay. I think that's huge for some runners, because some of them may feel like it is the end of the world in that moment, but you're looking at them and they're answering questions just fine. They don't have an injury. They're not sick. You've gone through that and everything looks fine. They can tell you what their last name is. They can tell you what their birthday is, or what day of the year it is. They're okay. That's when you can have a little bit more confidence in yourself to say like, yeah, you can keep going. Like, let's do this. I'm going to be at the next one waiting for you. And we'll go through the list again if we have to, like, let's just get through this one. So.
Yeah, totally. And also, if it really comes to the point where a runner does want to drop and they're being really adamant, you can also ask the question too, like, before you make this decision, can we talk about what are you going to feel like tomorrow? Because you've been training, you've been planning, and you want us to help you keep going. So just kind of to get that whole thought process going for the runner to help them out. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I'd venture to say like 70 to 75% of the time it's food. Is the runner is just hungry, and a snack can change the ball game. That's just what I've seen time and time again from personally and race directing. You get tired and cranky and hangry, and sometimes just a snack can help the situation a lot. So
yep.
we've got two last questions that are very quick, and then we can open it up to if anybody else has one. This is from Peter, which I can answer. For Wild Goose, do crew members have access to food at the Squatch HQ aid station? We do have, the Pacers can eat from the aid station, but we're not allowing the crew because there's just so many people that come. And we would run out of food. So we are limiting it to just the Pacers and the runners for the aid station. And then the other one that came in from El Mani here is probably another quick question. What distance should a runner have a crew or need a crew?
That depends. I mean, if the race allows, right? I mean, I would need crew to run a mile personally. But I think that's up to the runner, and as long as it's allowed in the race and they want crew, then I don't think there's any distance short enough to have crew. And like Ashley was saying at the top of the call, crew is in many forms. It might not be someone in our opinion, it's anyone helping at the race. It's the people that were working the aid station. It's the people that help you to get there. It's the people helping, giving you a place to stay when you're there, right? There's a lot of ways to support athletes. And so, yeah, I think it depends. But I don't think, as long as the rules allow, I don't think there's any distance short enough. But definitely for longer distances, the sky's limit. Again, we just did one across the country with 14 people in an RV. So
Oh yeah, that probably smelled great. That was good.
oh yeah, it was great.
Oh, we can tell you stories.
Okay.
Yeah, and aside from the race, definitely like follow the rules of the race. If the race don't allow crew, then you don't need crew. But I think I don't think you'd be signing up for a race, right? If you didn't want people there supporting you in some way, shape, or form, you could just go run out on your own and not have any support at all. And that's really cool too. But like, I think part of crewing is being a cheerleader or a champion for people to like reach their goals. And I think one of the things that, at least for me, from a marathon perspective, was just like the morality of seeing us. Like my fastest splits were when I knew people, even like my family was going to be around the corner spectating. I would just like speed up because I didn't want to just be like floppy going through there. Like I was like, I'm gonna look good in my pics. I'm gonna be really strong, and then I would run until I couldn't see them behind me anymore, and then I would just like like deflate a little bit. But like just the morality, like just the moral boost of it was really nice to have. So crew can be just like a cheerleader, but it can also be someone who's like gonna give you some hands-on support too. No distance is too short if the race allows it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we got a few minutes left. So if you have any more questions, drop them in the chat. This one just came in from Michael Feldman. This is a really great question. What costs should racers typically cover for crew, in particular when travel or lodging or driving is required? This is a very, very good question. And I don't think there's a right or wrong, but let you guys answer it.
Ash, you want to take that one?
I think it depends on the event, and it depends on your relationship with the runner. If people have to, if it's like a weekend event and you're asking me to come show up for you, and maybe it's kind of more laissez-faire, I'm probably not gonna like ask for anything. But like if I were a runner, I would be like, here, let me throw some gas your way, because I know you're going to spend like $50 going along this course. So as a runner, I would encourage you to just be thoughtful about, the time and the money and like the work that people put in when they're crewing. I don't think, and I would encourage every runner who uses crew to crew for someone else. So you can see kind of what goes into doing that kind of thing. It really isn't just like we're sitting around waiting for you to get to the next aid station. It seems like that, but it's not always that. We've had a flat tire that we had to change in the middle of nowhere. We've gotten lost on 5 different country roads and we have no idea how to get back. And it's, we forgot something at the other car. I mean, there are so many different things. Or like we've been going to the bathroom in the woods all day. Like we too haven't showered. We too haven't slept. So, and that is side note and tangent, please crew, take care of yourselves at a race, because it is just so much better for your runner if you are getting your naps in, if you're planning sleep ahead of time, if you're planning your meals and making sure that you've gotten, that you really are taking care of yourself. But yeah, if you're expecting someone to fly across the country for you, please just help throw some money their way, or like help cover their costs. It is expensive, as you know, and hopefully you can join a free network out there that offers race support no matter where you're at, or like will try to connect you with someone anywhere. That way you don't always have to fly someone out to go to that next event.
Oh, I think we have one of those.
Oh.
Yes,
No, but real, honestly, that's kind of why we started this business. Partly is because we were, it's very clear to anyone, and I'm sure all of you know how hard it is to find crew, and to expect your loved ones to be able to take off work, to be able to and to be able to afford to take everyone out there. So we really wanted to help build this network so that if you're running a race that's not local, you might be able to find someone locally that would be interested in volunteering and helping, and it's not a huge burden. They want to be at the race and they don't have to travel far to get there, and you get to make some friends. So that's really our goal with building this network. So if you want to join, if you want to get practice crewing, you might be able to help someone else in the network.
awesome. Yeah, and again, I think we've said this, the answer of almost every question is just talk about it ahead of time too. When you're asking, proposing to a friend like, hey, can you come and crew me? Make sure you've thought about and are communicating like, hey, I would love for you to come out to this 100. It's in, I don't know, it's down in Virginia and we're gonna fly there. I'd love to cover the cost of your flight, but if we could split the rental car, that would be great. So it's just like very specific, so everyone's on the same page ahead of time. Whereas like at the end of the event, then you're not all trying to do math and unexpected things come up. So throw that out there. We are just about at 8 o'clock. So Kelsey and Ashley, is there anything else you want to throw into this recording before we wrap up here? Maybe how people can find you. How about that? How about that info?
That would be important. Yeah, they can find us at chaoscrewing.com or on our socials at Chaos Crewing Co. And you can also email us. All of our contact information is on there. If you email us or join the network, which is on our website and socials, we can send you that handbook too with that list if you wanted to. And we're also reach out to us. We're a small business, but we are always trying to meet people and want to know what races you have coming up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was great. Fantastic. I would like to throw in one little pitch here. And this is a little bit self-serving, but when races have handbooks, there's a lot of information in there. So I encourage you to read the handbook. As if you're a runner or if you're a crew or pacer, take the time to go through the information that's already out there. I mean, for myself, I don't mind answering questions, but we're getting close to the race. So a lot of the emails are coming in and a lot of the answers are already online. So use the resources that are at your fingertips. A lot of the races, especially the ultras, have handbooks that are very comprehensive along with the website. So just try to read through what's already out there, and then also take advantage. Like Chaos Crewing, they have amazing resources that are available, both free, and then there's also consulting services. So I did want to highlight that. Not necessarily if you thinking, I don't know if I want a whole crew to come out. You can meet with with Chaos Crewing and do a Zoom and ask questions. I know it's been very helpful for people who are in situations where maybe their family is crewing and they don't know anything about crewing. So to have that that sit down with Chaos Crewing can be really, really beneficial.
Yeah, and we can help you. We can help you to whatever extent that you need. So even if it's just like learning the basics and going over like, hey, I don't really understand some of the jargon in this handbook. I don't want to put too much burden on my athlete. I want to kind of go into this with a little bit of background knowledge so that they can communicate with me effectively and I know what they're talking about. And then there's also just like the full gamut of helping you really plan an event. So maybe you're doing an FKT or your athlete wants to do an FKT and you have a brand new crew, you're bringing all your family and friends together and you want to make sure that you don't forget anything and that you maintain that safety out there on the course. Feel free to reach out to us and we can help you make your plans and go through that with you.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. This was really great conversation. We will make this recording available probably tomorrow, and please feel free to share it around. We'll have it on the website. We'll put it on the podcast. Really great information tonight. So thank you again to Ashley and Kelsey for your expertise here. This was really fantastic.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right.
Thank you.